Well, good morning, friends. I'm Pastor Sara. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, so glad we're all here, including our folks at home and our folks listening later as you're on vacation and listen to the podcast. We're so grateful. Can you just take a moment? Again, roll those shoulders, take a breath. And then I want to invite you to take 1 minute to gather up your things and move to a different seat. I was feeling anxious as I sat in my chair thinking of asking this because I knew some of you would really not like this. But that's part of why we're doing it. So friends, I would just take a minute. And parents, I let Rachel know to tell the kids you'll be in a different seat when they come back in. So everyone knows, preferably in a different section, maybe somewhere you've never sat before. I know, different section. What? Who does that? I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm used to seeing you guys in certain seats. So, Deb, I see you. I see the struggle. I'm with you. If you're new today, we do this every week. Ooh. Oh my gosh. People in the front row, who are you? I love this. All right. Thank you. Good job. Oh my gosh, everybody so impressed. You guys really embraced it. All right. I have to get used to where people are now because you're actually in different seats. I love it. Okay, thank you. So sometimes we find ourselves in a different place, right? Maybe a surprise and maybe it's unwanted and we feel a bit grumbly about it. Maybe it's a little awkward getting there, right? But I wonder, when is a time in your life when you found yourself in a different place? And one angle to consider this is what we just asked in our welcome question a few minutes ago, about moving. When have you moved? How often have you moved in your life? Packed up boxes and clothes and all your things and physically moved from one place to another? I first moved when I was 18 years old. Is that kind of common for a lot of people, moving out of the house for the first time? Yeah? No. You're I moved plenty of times before that. Okay. So I was moving from the house I grew up in, 10 minutes from here, and I moved from Redmond to Tacoma to go to Pacific Lutheran University. And then little did I know that over the next 10 years, I'd moved 17 times. And sometimes it was just, 100 yards to a different dorm, but it was a lot of moving, including moving as far as Berkeley, California for seminary. And I know, a lot of folks grew up in the military, so there's a lot of moving that has happened in this community as well. And I know for me, every move that I made was hard. Not only all the packing and sorting and lifting and loading and unloading and just all the stuff of moving, but also I just have such distinct memories of the last moments that I spent in that particular house or apartment or whatever it was. And I would stop and tear up and say goodbye. When we moved from California to here, June was 3 years old, and I made a video and we walked into each of the empty rooms. I was like, tell me about what we did in this room. And she's like, our Christmas tree was over there. And anyway, it was very sweet. I get very sentimental when I move. And I wonder about you. How was it for you as you've moved from place to place? Are you as sentimental as I am? Is that you? Okay, some. Okay, fair. So we're going to come back to this in a minute, but I just want you to just hold that awareness of what it's like to be on the move. So in our passage from Mark today, we're picking up right where we left off last Sunday as Jesus was criticized by the Pharisees for doing things on the Sabbath, picking some grains of wheat so they might have food, right? And then healing the man with the withered hand. So for today, in the second half of the text for today, Jesus appoints his 12 apostles. So far, we've seen some of them gathered, right? We've heard about James and John, Simon and Andrew, and then Levi as they were invited to come and follow Jesus. And many others have then become followers, learners of Jesus, and have been witnessing all the healing and teaching that Jesus has been up to so far. But here from this rather large group, the 12 are then set apart. So first, though, before we get to that, is another scene where we'll hear of Jesus his popularity and his influence have been spreading. So people are on the move from far off cities to find him, hoping to be healed. And then we'll get to this scene of appointing the 12 apostles. So as we hear this, as always, kind of envision it happening, get into the text, and just see what stands out for you. So here's Mark 3:7-19. Why don't we read it out loud? There'll be a lot of you're not sure how to pronounce it words. That's okay, just go for it, and it'll be right, okay? All right. Jesus departed with his disciples to the sea, And a great multitude from Galilee followed him, hearing all that he was doing. They came to him in great numbers from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, beyond the Jordan, and the region around Tyre and Sidon. He told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, so that they could not crush him, for he had cured many, so that all who had diseases pressed upon him to touch him. Whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and shouted, "You are the Son of God!" But he sternly ordered them not to make him known. Jesus went up to the mountain and called to him those whom he wanted, and they came to him, and he appointed 12, designating them apostles, to be with him and to be sent out to preach and to have authority to cast out demons. So he appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, son of Zebedee, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder, and Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew, and Matthew and Thomas, and James, son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who handed him over. Woo! All right. I mean, if you're going to receive a nickname from Jesus, I think Sons of Thunder is like, well done, well done. Well done, James and John. All right. So we're going to focus on this latter part of the reading, the appointing of the apostles. So to set that up, let's consider the significance of the number 12, right? The number 12. The number 12. Okay, so maybe not this number 12. But when we look at what Jesus is doing here for those who were there that day and those that heard in the following days that Jesus had set aside 12 people to form a group of apostles, to hear that it was 12, their eyes would grow wide, because what Jesus does here in choosing 12 is significant. To put it in perspective, question, do you know how many seats there are in the U.S. Senate? 100. How about the number of counties in Washington state? 39. I didn't know that either, right? So, but every Jew knew there were 12 tribes in Israel, right? Or at least that there had been. So there were these 12 tribes. The 12 tribes correspond to the 12 sons of the patriarch Jacob, also called Israel, whose stories are told in the book of Genesis. Also then, they also coordinated with the geographic areas where those tribes lived, which we see here. So 10 of the tribes had been defeated by the Assyrians 7 centuries earlier, prior to Jesus. But the prophets of the Old Testament spoke of a coming restoration, and that is what the Jews longed for. And it's what we've been talking about, right? The kingdom of God. They believed the time would come when God would turn everything around and make it a great nation once again. So for Jesus to call 12 guys and give them a special status and special commission, nobody who heard this could miss that he was saying that, yes, now is that time. It is the time of the kingdom of God. So this is just the first little thing, that the 12 apostles, it means the 12, it coordinates with the 12 tribes of Israel, and he's saying now is the time. So that's going on in this text, okay? So 12 guys, and what does Jesus set them apart to do? So the text says that Jesus appointed 12, designating them apostles, to be with him and to be sent out, to preach and to have authority to cast out demons. So he designates them apostles. Does anyone know what the word apostle means? Or have any guesses, fun or otherwise? What do you think apostle might mean? Leader, good one, yeah? Sticks foot in mouth a lot. I think that's a good one. No. Any others? So apostle means one who is sent. Interesting, right? And our text even says Jesus will send them out, right? To proclaim the word and have authority to cast out demons. In a few weeks, we'll get into more details about what this mission is that they are sent on. But for today, I just want to acknowledge that the apostles are commissioned to be sent. Jesus' intent is they will be people who then are on the move, right? who moved 17 times in 10 years, or they just are on the move. So they will be people who are displaced. And we see this displacement throughout the Gospels and into the book of Acts. And as we read about through Paul's letters, Jesus' people are people who are on the move, moving from town to town, going to where the people are, to where God sends them as they share what they have and extend what they have and enjoy hospitality with others. They are sent. They are therefore displaced. And I use the word displaced intentionally. So displaced means to be put out of the usual or proper place. Without a home, there is then this sentness that comes with following Jesus that displaces them, that displaces us from the places where we might usually find ourselves. And we feel acutely aware as we look around at our world right now that we are living in a time of profound displacement, right? Right now, millions are being forcibly sent from their homes, and not by God, but by violence, by war, by climate change, by policies that punish the vulnerable, by genocide, by starvation. Families are deported without due process. Refugees crowd borders. People are displaced, right? From Gaza, from Ukraine, from Sudan, from El Paso to the Mediterranean Sea. I think of our neighbors even just next door at Kirkland Place Shelter, both the family shelter and the women's shelter. They have 100 beds there. And there's always, always a long wait list. And every one of those people, those families, they are all displaced, right? And some of us are also living in times of kind of physical displacement too. A few of us have moved recently. Leanna and family, Gillen has. Brian already mentioned that he and his family are moving also. Just my best friend Abby was a pastor at Holden Village for this last 2 years, and Abby and her family, they are done as of Friday, and they drove out. They moved out. They're staying with us for this weekend. They're also here today. Hi, guys. So they're staying with us as they have this breath before they move on to this next season of their lives, but they're very much kind of in this displaced moment too. So it's kind of all feeling very aware of how it's all around me. So whether recently or not, we have found ourselves in a new place, even in a new seat and perspective in church on a Sunday, right? There are delightful things that can often come when we find ourselves in a new place. It always comes with a certain amount of disorientation, of being unmoored, right? Of being surrounded by unfamiliarity. And it's not just physical displacement. We know kind of emotional and spiritual displacement too. There are times where we can feel displaced in our own family or in our community when we feel estranged from those we felt close to, or we feel alone after friends move away. Times we feel emotionally or mentally displaced, like you're not at home in your own body or your mind. This comes when we face the aging of our bodies or illness or injury. We feel displaced in times of transition of all kinds. Those in retirement, right, or divorce or a breakup, in grief, in empty nest, and as we face graduations, having a baby, when we have a job that ends or begins, when we come out, when we change gender identity, we can feel displaced even at church. Like we're not sure if we belong as we sort out who Jesus is and who we are, and we struggle with how Christianity is represented in the world. We can feel displaced. Again, I could say so much more. There are so many ways in which we can feel displaced, put out of our usual place. So you may have moved often in your life or not, but I wonder, when have you felt displaced? And I wonder if now is one of those times. And if you're willing, even just to show hands, are you living in a time of feeling displaced, whether it feels positive or negative, physical or more emotional? Are you willing to just kind of name that and say, yeah, I'm living in that time. Yeah, I see you. Thank you. So we just named together that we are a displaced people, and as Jesus' people, to be honest about how not only does life throw things at us that displace us, but we name that the life of Jesus is one that will also push us out. Send us out into the world physically and emotionally, for we too are apostles. We are also the sent ones, yes? And what I wonder, just as I see Jesus in our text, he's like getting ready. He's like, now I will send you, right? He's getting ready to send out his disciples. I wonder how there might be something to all of the times that we feel displaced, that there is something that happens in us as we see ourselves, as those who are in a new, uncomfortable, maybe even undesired new place. That at all of the times, like all of those times can become times where we are somehow more fully Jesus's people. I just wonder about that, because with Jesus, it wasn't the first time that God's people were on the move. It has been said of the Israelites, God's people in the Hebrew scriptures, that they were people of the tent. Like for Moses, God led Moses and the Israelites from slavery of Egypt to freedom in the promised land, right? Story of the Exodus. God's people were a displaced people, right? And as they went, they would stop, put up their tents, they'd sleep, and at times then they'd get up, it's time to move on, and they would walk on. And as they lived through these nomadic transitional years, they could never put down permanent roots in a place. They were displaced, people of the tent. And this is us too. We are sent. We are invited to this on-the-moveness of life. And a yes, it is our yes to being inconvenienced. I'd like to consider an update to the language and the image of how we talk about this. I wonder if maybe we are people of the RV. And I say RV for two reasons. First, it's just kind of hipster fantastic to have like an RV right now, right? So just our shiny, fabulous one, or like that old, musty recreational vehicle. So yes, the RV. And second, and more sincerely, I like the RV image for our understanding of our displacement, because it captures certain dynamics of how Jesus invites us into being apostles, into being sent ones too. Because though we're on the move, there's always room there for others, right? We're never alone. And the key to this is actually in our text today also. Jesus' intention, the text says, it's not only to send the apostles out, right? But also, and I love this so much, he appoints them to be with him, right? He appointed them to be with him. I just love that. And to send them out to do all these things too, right? But he appoints them to be with him, gathered and scattered, right? But there's that gathering too. To be sent is also an invitation into a life of God, which feels so like counterintuitive. Yes, you are sent, but also like we're here too, right? A life that, yes, will be uprooted and inconvenienced at times, uncomfortable, unfamiliar, but at all times it's a life lived with God. Always room in the RV. And God is always taking up one of those seats inside. Though I think that God lets me sleep on the comfortable mattress, it's in the back, right? Like I think God's good that way. But it's what we see with Moses and the Israelites. Moses wasn't just driving blind through the wilderness, right? But God led them with a pillar of cloud by day, right? And a pillar of fire by night. So the great story of God is one where God is always with God's people. And Jesus is continuing that as he calls them to be with him, to be people of the RV, which is, again, why I wonder that even when we find ourselves displaced by what seems awful or undesired, as those things happen in our lives that send us, displace us, that because Jesus is with us in those times of being sent, that they become some of those times that we can feel God so near to us, leading us, because we do feel unmoored and we are looking for that help. And then we too, as we're in our RV of feeling displaced, we too can look up and see that pillar of cloud, that pillar of fire, God's blazing presence in our own wilderness too. So not only are we sent by God, but we are sent with God, right? And if this is a time of displacement for you, what might it look like for the presence of God to kind of come into focus for you? And maybe it already has. As I consider some of the things folks in our community are going through, like a good number of y'all are looking at jobs or housing or actually moving right now, and Jesus says, yeah, I have sent you and I am with you. A few of you are moving for various reasons, for grad school, to start an adventure in a new city, to separate from your spouse, to move out from your parents' house. Jesus says, yeah, I have sent you and I am with you. A few folks in our community are stepping more fully into retirement and exploring what this new season means. And Jesus says, yeah, I have sent you and I am with you. So many of us are navigating challenges with our kids. And Jesus says, yeah, I have sent you and I am with you. Many of us are worried about layoffs at work. Jesus says, yes, I have sent you and I am with you. Many of you have expressed how this is a lonely time in your life and you're looking for friendship or dating relationships or a place to belong. And Jesus says, yes, I am with you. I am sending you and I am with you. And so today, this is what we name that God is our God who is with us when we are displaced, as we get in touch with our discomfort, as we sit in the new seat that we've never sat in on a Sunday before. We're reminded of how we are displaced people. Displaced, yet always, always, always God is with us, present to be here, present here in beloved community. And nothing quite draws us back to that reality of that presence, that assuredness when it's put to the test, when we're in the unfamiliar. When we're displaced, we are most aware that we are people of the RV, people who are, yes, with Jesus, and yes, who are sent. So with this, the other question that we hold, if we are both, with Jesus and sent, then the other question, of course, is where? To whom is God sending you? We are to be with them and to be sent. So even as this may be a time of displacement for you in your life, God has a way of creating opportunity for us to love and serve, to fight for justice, to show compassion and care, to give of ourselves just as God has given us so much. So what are the opportunities or the relationships that are opening up in your life right now? And it may be even because you are in a displaced place, right? What is opening up for you? What are those opportunities? How is God sending you now? I think of there's certain struggles we're navigating with our kids, but it's like putting us into places and relationships with new people, which become these new ways in which we can connect and in service and in relationships. So it's just becoming I feel like we are sent to these folks right here, right? So I just wonder, what is it for you in this season? So hold that question. And part of how we get to ask that question too is that this is a question for us as a community, right? Salt House, this is what we do as church, right? We are sent with God together, right? We get to do this together. Isn't that awesome? Woo! Isn't that awesome? We displaced together in this particular place on the east side of Seattle. We're like a big old RV that's just been parked right here on this particular piece of the world. And the question, the privilege that we get to keep asking is, how are we being sent together here, right? And as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, and as we've continued to name, this fall, we will have some intentional discerning work that we're going to do together with a hired coach who's going to help grow our capacity to listen deeply, to develop our own inner knowing, and then using that together to listen for what God is saying to us about who we have been here at Salt House, what God is asking us to do, and how we can then serve our neighbors and the world in this next season. And as we move through that, to then answer questions about, how do we hire and how do we staff for that if that's who God is calling us to be? So again, please know that you will be instrumental to those conversations and process. We will do this work together, okay? But already, y'all, some good things are cooking up in our midst. One of those things, we've been able to build our Justice League team, which is our social justice committee. And we had, 2 weeks ago, we had our first meeting. You guys, there are 10 people on this team right now. And so we are diving in and we're doing this work, and they are refreshing and expanding our service and our relationships at Kirkland Place Shelter next door. Because remember, this is a team that engages with homelessness, oversees our work with reparations, as well as our queer initiatives, right? So they're refreshing and expanding our service and relationships at Kirkland Place Shelter next door, engaging conversations with other churches and organizations and the city here in Kirkland locally. And they're revamping our reparations work. We're about to partner more fully with our queer and faithful group to get our systems in place for how we financially support queer initiatives and advocacy in the world. It's so exciting. It's such good stuff, right? So, and we're doing this work because we already know that we have been sent to serve and be in relationship with our actual neighbors next door, right? With the staff and with the folks experiencing homelessness at the shelter. We know that we've been sent by Jesus into the work of reparations and racial justice and repair. This will continue to evolve, but already we are feeling this energy of being sent by Jesus into this work of justice in fresh and impactful ways. So yeah. So friends, if you want to be a part of that, let me know. But also just know that this is a team that's doing this work like on our behalf, but so that, they make these connections happen, build these events so that we can invite in our whole community to be a part of it, right? So they're like liaisoning into these ways so that our whole community can be available for the opportunities that come up to serve and be together in this, to be sent together, right? And the next opportunity is in 2 days. On Tuesday, August 5th, we have our movie night here in this space. It's absolutely for kids, but actually it's for everybody, so everybody can come, because we're inviting the families from the shelter next door to watch How to Train Your Dragon. We bought a bunch of inflatable pools that'll have like blankets and pillows. So this space will be like this cozy. I love the vision. I'm so excited. And then there'll be snacks and pizza. There'll be games out there to play, a place for like adults to also hang out, to chat with the other parents that'll be around. So come and be sent together just as we engage in a really fun way with the folks at the shelter next door. So that's on Tuesday. So join us. It is the old one. It is the animated movie. Good question. I know there are a few out there. Yeah. I haven't seen the new live action one. I'm excited though. Someday. But I do love the old one, so it's going to be good. Have you guys seen it? How to Train Your Dragon? I love it. Highly recommend. Okay. All right, so friends, and finally, so today we have seen Jesus in this radical move set aside 12, right? Eyes wide, 12, commissioning them to be part of the kingdom of God. In the appointing of the 12, Jesus forms a community of sent ones to God. We too hear that call for us today, right? This is us. It's a call to say yes again, to recognize ourselves as displaced people who are never alone, even as we're sent, people of the RV. So as the band comes back up, I just invite you to continue to listen for what God may be saying to you in all of this. To be in the questions that we've already been asking here, like just becoming aware, like how are you feeling displaced right now? And then how might you see your own kind of pillars of fire and cloud? How is God present in that way, in whatever way you're feeling displaced? So just be present to that, asking about that. Then also, who are you being sent to? How is God opening opportunities? What are the ways that God is showing you now? Or just what else has come up for you? How else has the Spirit been whispering through this time? What's on your heart? So I invite you to stay in those questions. For dear ones, we will continue to be faced by the inconvenience of following Jesus as displaced people. But Jesus keeps showing us that now is the time where God's kingdom is here among us. And the great good news is that as we are displaced, as we are sent, we get to be the love and justice and grace and peace of God for the sake of the world, and we get to do it together. So I'm so grateful for y'all that we get to be in this together, and grateful for our God who is with us no matter what. Amen? Amen.